I want to quickly give you IRS Form 941 instructions line by line. You're going to love today's conversation. I guarantee it. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. How are you today? I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous if you were to ask me. If you are doing as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka and let's roll. In today's conversation, I want to give you IRS Form 941 instructions line by line. If you're here and you're just interested in the step-by-step, please, you want to fast forward to about 10 minutes. But if you really want to understand all the information that you need about IRS Form 941, please listen right now. It's very important because we have received so many questions about IRS Form 941 that we feel like, you know what, we need to clarify things a little better. So what is Form 941 and when do you have to file it? This is a tax form that businesses file quarterly to report income taxes, Social Security taxes, and Medicare taxes they withheld from employee paychecks. All right, simple as that. Form 941 also reports employer Social Security and Medicare taxes. So filing deadlines are the last day of January, April, July, and October. So completing Form 941 includes reporting wages that you paid, tips your employees reported to you, federal income tax you withheld from your employees' paychecks, employer and employee shares of Social Security and Medicare taxes, additional Medicare tax withheld from employee paychecks. You also have current quarters adjustments to Social Security and Medicare taxes for fractions of cents, sick pay, tips, and group term life insurance. Qualified small business payroll tax credit for increasing research activities. So this is actually a non-exhaustive list of things you have to report on Form 941. So after accounting for all of these items, IRS Form 941 will tell you how much money you should have actually sent to the IRS or you will need to send to the IRS to cover your payroll tax responsibilities for the quarter. This happens on a quarterly basis, all right? So after defining Form 941, what is the target? Who needs to file IRS Form 941? Most businesses with employees have to file IRS Form 941, and they must file the form each quarter. And the types of businesses that don't have to file Form 941 include seasonal businesses. They don't have to file during quarters when they haven't hired anyone. Businesses that hire only farm workers. People who hire household employees such as maids or nannies. You don't have to file Form 941 for that. So if you predict that you will pay $4,000 or less in wages in the coming calendar year, not quarter, then you may be able to submit IRS Form 944 annually instead of filing Form 941 quarterly. So the yearly equivalent of Form 941 is 944. So Form 944 is actually for very small businesses to report and pay withheld income and payroll taxes once per year instead of quarterly. So please, you want to first contact the IRS and get permission to file Form 944 instead of Form 941. Let's talk about the deadline. So what is the deadline for filing Form 941? So it is 1 month following the last day of the reporting period. Let me repeat that. The deadline for filing Form 941 is 1 month following the last day of the reporting period. Here are the calendar deadlines for filing Form 941. So for the first quarter, April 30th, for the period covering January 1st to March 31st. For the second quarter, July 31st. For the period covering April 1st to June 30th. For the third quarter, October 31st, for the period covering July 1st to September 30th. For the fourth quarter, January 31st, for the period covering October 1st to December 31st. So if the due date falls on a weekend or holiday, then you have to file by the next business day. So if you file by mail, your return will be tracked according to the date of postage. This is important. Date of postage. You get an additional 10 business days to file if you have paid your employment tax deposits in full and on time for the entire quarter that's covered by the return. Okay, let's talk about submission. Folks, we're still having a conversation today about IRS Form 941. What is the submission? So how do you submit IRS Form 941? Actually, the fastest way to file Form 941 is through the federal e-file system. Okay, so you go to the irs.gov, you see on the screen here, and you have actually a system that allows you to file everything automatically. The business taxpayers can access e-file through most tax preparation software for small businesses as well. We have actually covered this topic on other shows, so if you're interested in this affair, you have two videos. So you have the best tax software for small businesses, freelancers, and independent contractors. You have a TurboTax versus Tax Act for small business, and we just did a quick compare and contrast. And one thing you can also do, you can actually, if you have a tax accountant or a tax professional in general, they should be able to have access to e-file to do the work for you. So this is something that is very, 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 very simple. One thing I need to say here, if you choose to, you can also mail Form 941 return to the address in the instructions. Very important, okay? Remember that the mailing address depends on the state your business is in, whether you are submitting payments with your return, and what quarter you are filing for. Additionally, if you're mailing your return with the payment, be sure to include the payment voucher. This is important for the IRS to track and to really know exactly that you have actually followed instructions. Very important. Let's now talk about the step-by-step, folks. So this is why you're here. We're going to have it. We're going to jump into it right now. So the form has a two pages, all right? One thing I want to say here is that before you even complete the form, please, you want to gather some kind of information. The basic business information, such as the business address and employer identification number, or EIN, the number of employees, the total wages you paid this quarter, taxable Social Security and Medicare wages for the quarter, total amount of federal income taxes, Social Security tax, and Medicare tax withheld from employees' wages this quarter, employment tax deposits that you have already made for the quarter. Okay, and if you use payroll software or accounting software, you should be able to actually gather the data you need from IRS Form 941. Okay, and so once you gather the information needed to complete Form 941, fill in the business information at the top of Form 941. I want you to look right now on the screen. Okay, so you have to put your EIN. You gotta have an EIN. Okay, so and then you put your name, your trade name. This is basically the business name, if any. You put your address, your state, the zip, the city, all that kind of stuff. And if you look on the screen to the upper right corner, you need to indicate the quarter you are filing for. In our case, we indicated the fourth quarter, October, November, and December. Okay. Moving on here, so you have to put the number of employees that you have for the quarter that you're paying, that you have paid the wages to. You also need to actually indicate the amount of wages the wages and tips and other compensations that you have paid. In our hypothetical example, we paid $30,000 to 5 employees, and the federal income tax withheld from wages, tips, and other compensation. Here for us, we put $7,500. Just make sure, obviously this is a hypothesis, those numbers are made up, but in your case, everything should be coming from your accounting software, right? Okay. Number 4, if no wages, tips, or other compensations are subject to Social Security, then you go to line 6. But for us, it does matter. So here you have a breakdown of we have more breakdown of your tax information. So 5A, can you see that? Are you with me? All right. So you have taxable Social Security wages. We paid $25,000. Qualified sick leave wages, $25,000. So you have the math there, times 12.4% times 6.2%. And 5A, qualified family sick leave wages, the same numbers here. And taxable Social Security tips, we have none. So that's, and you want to check the box in line 4 if the wages, tips, and other compensation you paid is not subject to Social Security and Medicare tax. This would not apply to most businesses, so you can leave this blank. However, IRS Publication 15 explains the types of businesses that fall into this exemption if you are unsure if this applies to you, okay? Publication 15, you can see this on the screen. Go and read more about it. All right, I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another section of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. We are still having a conversation about IRS Form 941. I'm giving you line by line instructions, and we are continuing from line 5C. You can see here taxable Medicare wages and tips, and 2.9%. The math is there. Taxable wages and tips subject to additional Medicare tax withholding. We have none. 5E, are you with me? All right. Total Social Security and Medicare taxes. So we just put in the numbers. So you have 6925, Section 33121Q. This does not apply to us, and this is a little complicated, so I'm not going into details here. And total taxes before adjustments, you have to add lines 3. Do you see lines 3 where it says federal income tax withheld from wages, tips, and other compensations? That was $7,500. You have to add to that. You also have to add the line 5E. We had 6925. Okay, and 5F, there's nothing. So this amount is $14,425, and there are some adjustments for fractions or of cents, $4.85, and current quarters adjustments for sick pay. We put the $9.25, and current quarters adjustment for tips and group term life insurance, $10.90, and the total taxes after adjustments, $14,450. And we have no qualified small business payroll tax credit for increasing research activities. If you're interested in this topic, you want to go and read Form 8974, or just email us when we will answer any question that you have. And if there is any non-refundable portion of credit for qualified sick and family leave wages for leave taken before April 1st, 2021, you can put that in. And the non-refundable portion of employee retention credit, if this applies to you, you just fill that form. One thing I want to say here is that if your business can claim payroll tax credits for increasing research activities, you will complete line 11 and attach IRS Form 8974. You can see this on the screen. IRS Form 8974. Payroll tax credits are available to companies that engage in research and development in technology, science, medicine, or related fields. Okay. And you might have also a fractions of cents adjustment if you notice a small difference between your total taxes after adjustments and credits and your total deposits on Form 941 or Form 944. And on Form 941, you might notice that there are different amounts on line 12 and 13. So, and on Form 944, you might notice different amounts on line 9 and 10. So those are what we call the fractions of cents differences, okay? But not a biggie, really. Moving on here, folks, we are actually on, are you with me here? So we are still on part 1. Can you see that? And we have here line 11 does not apply to us. Line 12 not apply to us. Line 11G. So line 12 does apply to us. Sorry about that. All right. So basically, you just have to do the math. So you subtract line 11G from line 10. If you remember, line 10 was going back here, total taxes after adjustments, that's $14,450. You can see this on the screen here. So we're going back to the previous screenshots. Okay, so line 10, that's what you have. So line 11 here, line 12 rather, you subtract line 10 from line you actually subtract line 11G from line 10. And 13A, are you with me? 13A, this is the total deposits for the quarter, including overpayments applied from a prior quarter and overpayments applied from Form 941X, 941X PR, 44X, or 944X SB. We have actually covered this on other shows, so I'm not really talking about this here. So the total deposits was $12,925, but you owe the government $14,450. I mean, we owe in our hypothetical example here. So moving on, if you go down all the way to 13G, here are the total deposits. 13H, are you with me? You can always pause the video to let the information sink in. If you just want to let it sink in, take your time and pause the video, all right? So 13H, we have total advances received from filing forms 7,200 for the quarter, 575. And so total deposits, $12,300. $350, and we got that by removing $575 from $12,925. So the balance due, you can see on line 14, you see that the balance due in our hypothetical case is $2,100. So we have to pay the government $2,100. Moving on to part two. Part two, it says here, tell us about your deposit schedule and tax liability for this quarter. So basically, you have three options, and in our case, we were a monthly scheduled depositor for the entire quarter. So you need to enter your tax liability for each month and total liability for the quarter. Then you go to part three. So here we enter our tax liability for each quarter. For the first month, $4,800, second month $4,800, and third month $4,850. So the total amount $14,450. Moving on here. So I'm here on part three. Are you with me? So here, the government wants to know more about your business. One thing I want to say here is that if you are a semi-weekly depositor, meaning you have more than $50,000 for tax liability for the quarter, you will complete Form 941 Schedule B, and you need to attach it with this form, okay? Form 941 Schedule B. You can see this on the screen here. So Schedule B breaks down your tax liability for each day of the quarter. Okay, we are now on part three. Here, the government wants to know more about you. We're just going to jump straight into line 21. So line 20 does not apply to us. Everything before that does not apply to us, all right? So line 21, qualify wages for the employee retention credit and qualify health plan expenses for the employee retention credit. One thing I want to say here is that you have to go through each line to see which item applies to your specific business. If you don't have the resources in-house to do this, you can rely on a third-party software or a CPA, a local CPA, all right? And moving on here, we are going to line 4. So part 4 rather, because anything else from line 23 to line 28 does not apply to us, okay? And so basically we are going now to part 4. You can see this on the screen. So line 4, you want to, if you have a third-party designee, this is like the CPA or the local, the enrolled agent taking care of your taxes. The IRS says, can we talk to them? Of course, you want the IRS to talk to them, because if you're not really familiar with all the intricacies of tax laws, you don't want to be bothered with correspondence from the IRS, right? You want them to talk to an expert on the matter. So you have to put your designee's name and phone number. And remember, the designee is just the local CPA or the EA that handles your tax affairs. You put their number, and you have to put also the PTIN. So every CPA, every professional tax preparer must have something called the PTIN, the Professional Tax Identification Number. So this is how the IRS actually tracks or monitors the quality of work provided by tax professionals in the country. So you have lawyers, tax lawyers, you have enrolled agents, you have CPAs, and so on and so forth. And you have to sign, you have to put your title, you have to put your name. So we put here, for us, it was the chief convenience officer who did the work. And the best daytime phone, you have to put that, put your name and the date it was done. I want to also talk to you about, we are continuing here and we're moving on here. There is a form called, so this page intentionally left blank. So you just want to, we kept it here because this is how the form comes, and there's nothing you can do here. Just skip to the next page. And here we have the voucher. And it's important to understand that the vouchers are critical. Before you sign and complete part 5, please remember, you want to review everything you have filled in thus far to ensure that the information is correct. If you work with a tax advisor or business accountant, you may want them to review the return as well, and that makes sense. So once you have reviewed your completed IRS Form 941, you'll be able to sign and date. And if you have used a paid preparer, as I said before, make sure they actually put in their information. And so talking now about the payment voucher. So in our case, remember we owed the IRS $2,100. I want to show you. Let's go back. So let's go back to the screen where we have the tax liability. Do you see that? Okay, I'm on the screen, line 14, where it says balance due. Do you see that? Balance due, line 14, 2100. So that's the amount you're going to send to the IRS. So if we go back to the payment voucher, here is a payment voucher. You put your EIN, you put the amount of your payments, right? You put your business name, you actually have to put your address, and you have to mention the quarter for which you're paying. Remember that here, even if you are a sole proprietorship, you can still send the IRS Form 941. It's all about the size of your business, whether you should file on a quarterly basis or on an annual basis. Okay, so this is how the voucher is. This is how it looks like, and you basically have a voucher for each quarter. And you have to send this. I've given you the deadlines before. You have to send this within the deadlines if you don't want to have penalties. This is really important. And it's depending upon how you're paying, whether you're paying via the electronic means, the IRS's website, or you are just sending them a check, the address to send the payment will be different. Okay, so what I want to say here is that the address will depend on the states where your business is located, and also what you have, where you have sent payments in the past, either as on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. Some people even are semi-monthly depositors, so they pay their taxes every 2 weeks. Okay. Now let's talk about tax deposits. Okay, folks, I'm still explaining to you here everything you need to know about Form 941. I've explained to you the step-by-step you need to follow to make sure the IRS doesn't audit you, right? But one thing I want to say here is that you should be paying employment tax deposits, either monthly or semi-weekly. So these deposits are often confusing to small business owners because the IRS has different deadlines for paying tax deposits and filing Form 941. So Form 941 has quarterly deadlines. That I have clarified that before. However, most businesses should not wait until filing IRS Form 941 to actually pay their employment taxes. You have seen in our case that we actually owe the $2,100, right? You don't want that, because that's an additional source of stress for the business, right? You want to pay as you go. The IRS has a pay as you go system for paying employment taxes. So businesses generally fall into the monthly or semi-weekly employment tax deposit schedule, depending on the size of the business's tax liability. So please go, you can actually make your payment, your deposits through the EFTPS. That's the government's website. Okay, the only time you can make a payment along with Form 941 is if your total tax for the current quarter is less than $2,500, or if you are a monthly depositor who owes a small balance, no more than $100 or 2% of the total tax due, whichever is greater. This is important. So ideally, if you have paid the complete amount for your employment taxes for the quarter, your balance due on line 14 of Form 941 should be zero, and that's what you want, really. And I want to finish today's conversation by giving you the related forms. There are some forms that are related to Form 941. So one of the reasons business taxes are so complex is that there is never just a single return to file, and you may need to complete other related forms. So here are a few to keep in mind. So we have Form 941 Schedule B. I've actually spoken about that before. So you will file Schedule B along with Form 941 if you are a semi-weekly depositor. If you have more than $50,000 in tax liability for the quarter, you are a semi-weekly depositor. Schedule B breaks down your tax liability for each day of the quarter. Each day of the quarter. You also have Form 941X. So if you make an error on a previously filed Form 941, you want to file IRS Form 941X to correct the mistake. You will need to be prepared to provide a written statement on how you actually discovered the error and calculated the corrections. You also have Form 944. So small businesses that pay $4,000 or less in wages in a calendar year may be able to file IRS Form 944 annually instead of filing the quarterly Form 941. And last but not the least, we have Form 940. So in addition to income tax withholding and Social Security and Medicare tax, employers also need to file and pay federal unemployment taxes, or FUTA. So this get reported on IRS Form 940. All right, folks, this is it for today's conversation. I was giving you IRS Form 941 line by line instructions, and I define what the form is, the target audience, the deadline, the submission, the step by step, the tax deposits, and the related forms. Thank you so much for your attention. I'll see you next time, but until then, remember, stay marvelous.